Well, hello there, all you amazing people. I am going to apparently clean my desk soon. I'm going to talk about bad Linux arguments for running Linux on the desktop, because this is something that drives me more nuts than anything in the world. So let me say this, let me give you some qualifier, as a lot of people will call it. By the way, I only have this up there because I know some Linux user will see it and get super pissed off over it and can't help themselves in the comment section. Most of the stuff I have here on the side is basically just jokes, okay? It's just to spice things up a little bit, so you have something else to look at than my ugly face. But let me get back to my thought here. Thought. Anyway, I can't speak. They are, the qualifiers. I've been using Linux non-stop as a desktop OS since the late 90s, mid to late 90s. I can't actually remember when I installed Linux for the first time, and then I did that a few times, and then I started to use it as a desktop. Let me put it this way. The first time I installed Linux, there was almost no help online, and I didn't even have internet at that point, okay? That was how rare and how long time it was. Like, it was rare for people to have internet, and the help for Linux on the internet was almost none. I learned how to install Red Hat Linux back in the 90s from a book. So if I didn't understand anything, I was shit out of luck. I had to translate shit from English to Danish to understand, that was how we did it back then. Nowadays, installing Linux, even Arch Linux, is the easiest thing on fucking earth. It really is. To install Linux today, you have to have one critical skill, and that's the ability to read English. So I have dealt with Linux users and the Linux argument for running Linux on the desktop for close to 3 decades now. I also use Windows. I also use Mac. I recently got a Mac Mini last December, and I use it on and off. Some days, some weeks I use it more, and some I don't. I'm still maining, if you would call it that, Windows for one reason, and that is the games and the programs that I need to run and I want to game is best supported on the Windows, and some of them are only supported on the Windows. If for some reason the day comes where I can do everything I want on Linux, I use that. Here's how I main the OS. I main the OS where I can do most of the things I have to do without issues, like without me having to emulate this to emulate that, configure this to configure that, and blah blah. I do that at work, okay? I mess around with coding and computers at work. I don't want to do that when I come home. And before I had an IT job, I did it for friends and families and other people. I don't want to do that on my own, I don't want to work for myself without getting paid, basically. That's what I'm coming at. So I use the OS that allow me to run the programs and play the games as convenient as possible in the best way. And for me, that's Linux. Sorry, not Linux, Windows. For you, it may be Linux. That's why I was saying Linux. It may be Haiku. It may be FreeBSD. Heck, it may be Mac OS. I don't care. You shouldn't care. Nobody should care. But let's dive into all of the bad arguments that a lot of people give users to run Linux on the desktop, and then at the end I will give you some really good arguments why you should do it, because there are some good ones out there. They are just really rarely used. Let me start with pissing off the biggest part of people. Oh, it's open source, you can see the source code, and you can, therefore it's more transparent and stuff like that. No, nobody gives a fuck. You're not going to get the average user, even your advanced user are not going to sit and look at source code like they were reading the menu for McDonald's, okay? Nobody is going to read source code unless you are a developer, you are learning, or for some fucking reason there is something wrong with the source or with the program, and you have the source code and you think you know how to fix it. Rarely do people be like, hey, you know what? I just worked 60 hours this week. The wife is yelling at me all the fucking day. The kids is driving me nuts. The dog just fucking pooped all over the floor. Let me sit and look at other people's code. Yeah, that's not going to happen like that. Some do. A really select few minorities doing it. But most people are not going to do it unless they're getting paid, unless they're educated, or trying to educate themselves, or if something is so pro and they know nobody's going to fix it and they know how to fix it, they will do it themselves. Just like with a car, 99% of people are driving to the mechanic if it acts up just a little bit. Even people that fucking knows how to fix it, because it's more convenient. It's more secure and stable. There are no concrete, scientifically proven evidence of any operating system being more secure or stable than any other system. It all comes down to how it's configured by the end user administrator and how stupid the driver is behind the wheel. You, today, in today's world, you are the security risk, not the OS. That's been proven. Open source and FOSS software, it's better made, it's more stable, it's coded more secure. No. All of that depends on how good the development team is. Just because something is open source, don't automatically make it more secure or more stable and blah, blah, blah. Yes, people could look at the source code and point out when you fuck up. But like I just said, most people are not going to do that. And all of the tests that has been done versus open source versus proprietary software show that there is no concrete evidence of one of them being more secure or stable than the other. It's all about what do you prefer. And if you want more community involvement, well, you go with open source. It's that simple. It all comes down to the dev team or the developer. How good are the developer? The most determined factor of anything in coding is actually how good are the developers. That's the alpha omega question. Windows security faults are not because it's closed source. The same with Linux's security faults. It's not because it's open source. It's because a developer somewhere fucked something up. And they fuck up no matter what license they are using. Okay, you own your hardware and your software if you're running Linux. Again, nobody gives a fuck. They just don't. You are not going to sell someone from Windows to Linux by saying, well, you own your hardware and software. They already own their hardware and software. Yes, they are paying a license for Windows. They don't understand that. They don't get that because most people, they buy pre-made computers that have Windows on it. Could they save $20-$50 if Windows was not on it? Who gives a fuck? Who cares? Because if there was no Windows on in most companies that sell computers, do you think they will actually take that off the end price of the product? No. If they can sell a computer for $100 to customers, they will sell a computer for $100 to customers, even if they save money in some places by taking licenses away. That's how they're doing it today. That's why computers, to some degree, are getting worse and worse and worse. And that's also why we have a lot of soldered on shit, because it's cheaper to manufacture, it's cheaper to mass produce, they are saving money on production, and you have to upgrade when it fails, and they are selling it for the same price. There are whole industries on how to sell the same product for less production cost. So if Lenovo or Dell could sell you a computer for $50 less, $100 less if Windows was not on it, but they know the customers would buy it anyway, they're going to sell it for the same price as a Windows computer. Just the fact of it. It's a stupid argument. And the whole freedom thing, you're free on Linux, sorry. No. When you say freedom to people, I know they made free like in free beer. I think, no, freedom is in freedom and not free beer. I mix that up all the time. But when you say freedom to people, they're thinking like, so I can do whatever I want? I can do whatever I want on Windows. Because I'm not a developer, I don't need to mess with the kernel. I don't need to go in and configure the source code. So other than that, I can do whatever I want. I don't particularly need to customize the Windows to the high heavens and back. For 99% of people, well, according to the latest statistics, let's just say 96% of the world, they don't need that. They don't care about that. It's a bad argument. And here comes the worst arguments that I have ever seen in the Linux world. And I will break it. It's the same argument that they're making over and again, but I will break it down and explain why they don't matter. Because I've seen this in every time I criticize either Linux or Windows for having problems. These are one of the biggest arguments they're coming from. Well, if you say Linux is not that, it's not that good of a system, it's not meant for a desktop system, it's ruling, it's dominating the server world. And that's a really misleading statistic. I have a video about it. It's probably 1 or 2 years old now. Linux is only dominant in, I think it's 2 server markets. Web servers and virtual machining servers. Everything else is dominated by other systems. I think to this day, Windows is the best or the primarily used authentication server. It's the primarily used file server, etc., etc., etc. But take that away, that's not the argument here. The argument is that, well, if Linux is good for a server, it's good for my computer. Yeah, if you were running a server. It's like saying, these wheels are really good for a Formula 1 car, therefore you should put them on your car. It's 2 totally different fucking use cases. A server does a few things. It has to do server related stuff. Depending on what server it is, and how you set it up. It can do a handful of things, but most people set up servers to do like 1, 2, 3, or 4 things. Let me put it this way: the less the server has to do, like if it's a one-task server, less stuff can go wrong, basically. So that's why a lot of people, they will have an SQL server, emulate an SQL server on a Linux virtual machine, or they will emulate, the main server and stuff like that. But they have like small little servers to do 1 or 2 things. So that means if you're running the logic, let's just say, well, Linux is dominating the web serving world, therefore it's running as a desktop. So what everything a web server does, my desktop do, and it's running on the same hardware and stuff like that. I'm watching naked ladies on the web servers at work. I'm gaming on the web servers at work. No, no, you're not. So that argument that because Linux is good at X, Y, and Z server market, and therefore you should run it as a desktop, makes no sense. Again, it's like saying, well, every Formula 1 car, which is on category with some of the fastest and most advanced cars in the world, you should be running a Formula 1 car for everything then. That's the logic here. Try and pick your kids up or go shopping in a Formula 1 car, and you'll see how irritating that is. And then there's the other one here that I really, really love. Well, Linux is run on supercomputers. Windows is not. Yeah, again, like I said, there's a lot of the same arguments that I'm boiling down because they're so fucking stupid. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I can see why Linux, are highly customizable to the kernel operating system, is running a supercomputer that do really limited tasks. A supercomputer is all about calculation, like calculating a protein sequence or something like that. So I will ask you again, everything you do at home, or just 50% of the stuff you do at home, do they use a supercomputer for the same tasks? So yeah, if you were setting up a supercomputer at home, you should probably run Linux. But you are not running a supercomputer at home. You are running a desktop OS or a desktop computer that you want to do generalized computing with. When I say generalized computing, I mean it can be everything from coding to gaming to consuming to creating, being creative to whatever. Like, this is why desktop operating systems are actually some of the most difficult OSs to make, because they have so many things they have to do. They have to be a supercomputer, a server, a development station, a workstation, a consumption device, a gaming device. They have to be doing all of these things at once. And we all know the more we want one thing to do, the more prone to faults and errors they are. It's just the fact of nature. You have one thing to do, one task. There's a reason why you don't have people doing everything at once. They just physically can't do it. And the more things you're putting either a human or a mechanical task or a mechanical machine or mechanical software to, or not mechanical, like a software suite to do, the more prone to error and risk and all of that shit they are. It's a matter of fact. I don't think it's possible for you to fuck up any programming language you choose to use with print hello world. However they are doing it, if that's the only thing that program has to do, I don't think you can fuck that up from a security and stability aspect of it. But then try and make an office suite in that programming language. It has to do a lot of fucking things. It's getting more advanced. You get what I'm coming at here. A lot of people are using a lot of batshit crazy stupid arguments for you to run Linux, and what they basically are telling you is that Linux is great if you were not running a desktop, because all of the arguments for you to run Linux, or most of the arguments for you to run Linux, are stuff that makes a lot of fucking sense for servers, for supercomputers, for IoT devices, for refrigerators. I had that people like, oh well, Linux is dominating smart televisions and refrigerators. That's cool. My computer's not a fucking refrigerator. It's more like a heating machine, if I'm being honest. It's more like a fucking radiator. You cannot tell someone to stop what they are using right now because this thing over here is better at doing a totally fucking different thing. Yes, you can get your desktop to be a server, and if you want your desktop to be a server, you probably should use Linux. Okay, so great way of learning it and stuff, learning Linux and learning server technologies. But using those arguments to move people over to Linux, it's like, you like pancakes? I have cookies over here. You should try them if you like pancakes. Cookies, they are really great for kids. They love them. My grandma loved them. Just fucking eat them instead of pancakes. I'm like, brother, I want pancakes. I want a thin, flat thing I can put things into and roll them up and eat them. No, cookies is for you, because cookies is categorically best for these and these situations. Yeah, but that's not the situation I'm in. I'm in a situation where pancakes make sense. And this is why I often say that most Linux users, and I'm not talking about Linux professionals because they actually fucking know what they're talking about, but Linux desktop users have the worst arguments to convince someone to use their shit. They are the worst salespeople. So you said like, okay, you spent like almost 20 minutes fapping around and yelling and screaming at Linux users. What would be a good argument? This is one that's being used a lot, which I actually agree on, and I think it's a great argument. You want to revive old hardware. You're having a 32-bit computer, and you just want to use it for word processing and stuff like that. Linux is great for that. And this is one of the few arguments I hear them where I actually like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Another really good reason to run Linux would be like, I just want to learn alternative operating systems, and I'm willing to deal with the things that comes with it. Like I recently saw a video about some of my experience of running Linux as my full-time desktop for a year. It was a fun thing because this is almost word for word what he said. So let me show you my normal workflow with Linux if I don't have to sit down and fix a problem or trigger a software to get it to run. And I'm like, okay, so you have two workflows. One, if you need to actually make things work so you can do things. And one, if things just work. And granted, nowadays, more and more things just work on the Linux, but you still have to do more tinkering on Linux than you have to do on Windows, or especially on the Mac OS. And some people just don't want to do that. But if you are one of those people that I like when things break. I have nothing else to do, or I have a boring fucking ass job. I can't wait to get home and see if my Linux machine is fucked up, so I can get my brain cells stimulated at home, and I can figure out how this is working and how I can fix it. And it's a amazing great way of learning how Linux function on a high level. Like, you're not going to learn a lot of kernel magic, but you will learn about the file system. You will learn about how different programs use config files and all of those kind of things. So a really good argument is like, if you're one that learn by doing and you want to learn Linux just either for fun or for work and stuff like that, yeah, find the most unstable Linux distribution you can install and try and break it all the time and fix it. Really good argument, but that's not the majority of people. Like, I'm making arguments for people, not the majority of people. What is another one? Embedded development. If you like IoT devices or embedded development, if there's something you're into, Linux is great for it, because just like a lot of people say, Linux is dominating the IoT market, and Linux is running a lot on embedded software, as embedded software on a lot of small form factor machines and stuff like that. I get it. Like, it's uncategorically fucking better to code for Arduino on Linux than Windows. It's just easier. It's also easier to set up C and C++ environments under Linux than it is under Windows. And why? And you have to ask yourself this: why is it easy and more convenient a lot of times to run Linux if you're a developer? Well, that's because Linux is designed for developers. Linux from the ground up is actually built as a workstation/development station. That's why development and a lot of developers like to run on Linux, because it's since its inclination, since its birth, since it came out of the wombs of Mr. Torvalds, it was designed to be a workstation/development station. It then morphed over the years into become more of a generalized OS and a server OS and IoT OS. Fine, I get it. But that's it's in its DNA. So if you are interested in server technologies, if you're interested in workstation tasks, development tasks, Linux is amazing for you. This is probably the best argument for Linux, to be honest, is you want to do something most people don't. You just want to run something that make you feel unique, special, or something like that. You're not smarter for running Linux. Don't get me wrong here. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. You're not on a higher plane, on a technical plane running Linux. Okay? A lot of the people that invented the stuff and the paradigms and coded the software that is the birthplace or the basis for a lot of open source programs run Windows or Mac. And I don't think I come up with more good arguments for why, like massively good arguments for running Linux, because Linux as a desktop gives few people a lot of power and a lot of things they really, really want, but not the most. And I know there are kind of two camps in the Linux world. There are the camp that wants to keep Linux this niche little thing that's only for uber nerds and stuff like that. And then there is the more Richard Stallman kind of crowd that want Linux to explode and take over the world, and FOSS software is going to be the only thing existing, and blah, 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 blah. And let me be honest here. If that happened, if Linux became the most used desktop desktop operating system in the world, then all of the people that are telling, or not all, but let's say 80 to 90% of the people that are telling you to run Linux now will tell you to run Haiku or some other BSD or FreeBSD, some other unique little niche system, because the fact is, most people that run Linux on the desktop run it for a few reasons. They like free shit, like they don't have to pay for it. They are a little bit conspiracy nuts. They are a little bit anti-capitalism, anti-government, anti-big money and stuff like that, which is kind of laughable because Linux could not exist as it does today without capitalism and big businesses, because most of, if not 95% of all development effort being put into Linux is done by massive billion-dollar companies and not by Bob in his basement. So yeah, but they are against that and they want to feel unique and special. They are running Linux because it's a little bit like the hipster culture. See you all later. Bye bye.